قال الله العظيم في كتابه الكريم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ولا تمشي في الأرض مرحا إنك لن تخرق الأرض ولن تبلغ الجبال طولا. آمنا بالله صدق الله العلي العظيم. صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. That those that walk on the earth that are considered to be the servants of Allah, and in this context Allah has mentioned to be the servants of Ar-Rahman, that these people are truly the ones that have fulfilled that status. Now when you think about this, ibad or abd, this term is generally used today in a derogatory sense. If you call someone a abd, you are calling him a slave. But in reality, being a slave is only derogatory, and it only defames you, and it only belittles you when you are the slave of mankind. As we read in Dua Abi Hamza al-Thamali, Alhamdulillah alladhi wakalani ilayh فأكرمني ولم يكلني إلى الناس فيهينوني. That we praise Allah Azza wa Jal for putting our affairs into His hands, because when they are in His hands, it dignifies us, it gives us honor, it gives us a status. And He does not put our affairs, that we don't rely on mankind, because as we say بِرَبِّ حِجْمِيلِ, that this person, when we put something in their affairs, they feel like they've got one over us. Whereas in God's hand, it isn't like that. Even to the point that when Imam al-Sadiq alayhi salam asks Abu Hanifa, ثُمَّ لَتُسْأَلُنَّ يَوْمَئِذٍ عَنِ النَّعِيمِ, that on the day of judgment, when you are asked about an-na'im, an-na'im being from the word na'ma, that this blessing, an-na'im, when it has the alif and the lam before it, it is talking about something specific. This na'im that you will be asked about, what is it? And Abu Hanifa says it is food. And the Imam says, well, how did you come to this conclusion? He says, this is what I think it is, in my opinion. Some people like to say, in my opinion, it's this or that. And the Imam says that you have used conjecture, you are using guesswork, this is qiyas. And the first to use qiyas, the first to use conjecture was who? Iblis. When he said that you created me from fire and you created Adam from clay, and fire is better than clay, which absolutely makes no sense. You know, how do you compare fire with clay? They're two different things. They're incomparable. You know, fire is used for something specific and clay is used for something else. But that was the comparison he made using his guesswork. And the Imam said, and you say it is food. Look at the way the Imam replies. He says, imagine I invite you to eat with me. And when you finish eating, I ask you about the food. In other words, I ask for, imagine someone invites you to their house, they finish, they pull out the calculator. That would be $27.39. How would you like to pay, cash or credit card? And someone invites you to their house and then wants you to pay. What would you think of them? And Abu Hanifa says that they are stingy. He says, Hasha lillah. Do you think Allah is stingy? That He has given you a blessing like this food, and then He's going to say, alright, it's time to pay for the food. Then what is this blessing that God speaks about? He says it is us, Ahlul Bayt. that this is the na'im, this is the blessing that you'll be questioned about how you dealt with this blessing. Allah Azza wa Jal wants us to be the best of servants. And when we mention in our prayers the ultimate attribute of Rasulullah, when we sit down and we say, Ashhadu anna Muhammadan abduhu wa rasuluh. Before we give him the status and the position of being a messenger, he is the ultimate slave. The ultimate slave of God. Even when he would sit down, he would sit in the manner that a slave would sit. Because this is how he perceived himself. Some people find it difficult to accept this. But you look deeply into yourself, you know exactly what you are. You don't need people to tell you this. This is what gives you this humility. That's why he says, وَعِبَادُ الرَّحْمَنِ. In the true sense, they are slaves. الَّذِينَ يَمْشُونَ عَلَى الْأَرْضِ هَوْنًا. They are people that walk humbly because they understand what they are. They understand their position. Where Imam Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam says, suffices me, or it's sufficient for me, you know, that I have enough pride to be known as what? To be known as your slave. In the dua, Imam says that. Kafa bi, he says, Azzan an akuna laka abda. That this honors me, it dignifies me to be your slave. Imam Ali alayhi salam says that to God. And then he says, and I'm proud also that you are my master. Anta kama uhib. You are as I love them, make me what you love, what you want me to be. Allah wants us to be obedient. Allah wants us in order to honor us. In order to honor us, because people, when they move away from God, they lose their honor. They lose their dignity. They sell out for a morsel. They sell out for the smallest things, as you see in the world today. The reason people always ask me, why do you always mention homosexuality on the mamba? Because that's all I read in the news. Name me one day you didn't pick up the paper and it wasn't mentioning this subject. This is how much we have degraded ourselves, that people have the need to say, oh, I support this. Oh, it's great. He's brave. He's come out the closet. Who cares? Who cares? You think this is a big issue? It's going to get bigger. People will come out in the future and say, look, you know, I like to have, and they already do, incestuous relationships. But in the future, you know, people openly claim they're pedophiles. Then bestiality will become normal. Necrophilia will become normal. And before you know it, there will be nothing sacred. There will be no sanctity. Like the tradition of Rasulullah, the hadith, Rasulullah warned the people when he told them to do amr bil ma'ruf and nahi al munkar. He ordered them to do amr bil ma'ruf and nahi al munkar. Why? He says, so that people around you, why do you enjoin others to do good and tell others not to do bad? So the people around you are humane. He says, but there will come a time where people will stop doing this. And they said, will it be like that, Ya Rasulullah? He says, worse. There will come a time where people will enjoin others to do evil. Where others will come and tell you, you know, commit this. You know, they see your kid playing with a doll, your kid's gay. He's playing with it, that's it. You can't change that. This is the way they're perceiving this. You know, that new game that they had on the Nintendo, that's similar to the Sims game. And you could actually live a normal life. You could actually meet people and get married. And then they found out that there was a bit of a glitch in it. Big problem, you know, for the world, a massive problem. You couldn't have same-sex marriages. It was an issue. So Nintendo came out, spokesman came out and apologized, and you know, they made an update, and now you can have same-sex couples for a kids game. Kids are playing this game. You know, he meets a guy, he thinks they're going to be friends. Are we just friends? He moves a step further. This is what happens. This is what's going to be something that is normal and accepted. Then Rasulullah, when he mentions this, they said, will it be like this, Ya Rasulullah? He says it will be worse. How much worse? He says the time will come when the munkar will be ma'ruf and the ma'ruf will be munkar. That good will be seen as evil and evil will become good. Notice all these changes have happened, yet polygamy is never mentioned. That's still considered evil. Marrying more than one wife is still considered. You even look, when you think about it, the women and the men, when they think about this subject, before it was just women, they used to think this subject's... I'm not saying people have to go do it, but you have to accept that it's accepted. You have to accept this, that this is what God has suggested. Even in the Quran, it doesn't mention marry one wife. Look at the verse, it mentions marry what? It starts off marry two, then 3 and 4. And if you can't be just, this is another point that we have to explain. I don't care if women get upset with the explanation, because this is a tafsir. People go, be just, oh, if I get one orange, I have to get the other an orange. No. If one wife is better than the other, I can give the one wife more than I give the other. The justice is that I spend 2 nights with one wife, I spend 2 nights with the other. That's the justice. Yet you mention this, people say, oh my God, I can't believe he's saying this. We are running away from what our faith is. And we try and follow what we call common sense. You know what common sense is? Go look what Albert Einstein using. Albert Einstein is one of the greatest thinkers of the 20th century according to the West. And he says common sense is based upon what? Prejudices that we develop until we are 18 years old. The way you were raised in school, that becomes your logic, that becomes your common sense. So we ignore what our fitrah tells us. We ignore what our intrinsic makeup, our bias, what we have, we ignore this and start following what we are preached to by the majority of these teachers and these academics are godless. People that don't believe in God. Remember last year there was a teacher at Hurstville Primary. I couldn't believe there wasn't a public outcry last year that had students, primary school, had students' pictures on his Facebook along with sexual paraphernalia. You know, toys and whatever, all over on the... And then the principal got up and protected him. You are the sickos. It's okay to have children with these things up there. It's totally acceptable. So Allah Azza wa Jal honors us by making us His servants, honors us by making us His slaves. We are told numerous amounts, even if you're Christian, it's mentioned in the Old Testament and the New Testament. You will see verses that say, walk humbly with thy Lord. Walk humbly with your Lord. Because humility isn't only the action of walking with humility. It is in every sense, in every aspect, to be humble. You're not supposed to walk out, you know, like a silverback mountain gorilla and beat your chest. Or, you know, silverback people might think, all right, yes, I'm big. Or a seagull. If you go out to Cronulla or you go out to these places and you see these seagulls when there's a bit of food and they're surrounding it, and then one will get out and puff out his chest and walk around haughtily, and walk around looking down upon the others that he's conquered this. Why should we degrade ourselves and make ourselves like the animal kingdom? We shouldn't have this love, even though it's within you when you're young. When you're small, have you ever seen someone say, you know, I want to be a loser? They all say, I want to be the world champion. Whatever, world champion, whatever. If he likes football, he wants to be the world football champion. Boxing, he wants to be the world boxing champion. He wants this recognition. You never see someone that wants to live in this world without harming others. I want to live in this world without causing problems to others. Even in the Quran, when Amir al-Mu'mineen, firstly, when Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam mentions, when he mentions that those that fought against him and those that didn't want to accept him, he explains why. You know, you think about it. He says, كَأَنَّهُمْ لَمْ يَسْمَعُوا قَوْلَهُ تَعَالَى. It is كَأَنَّهُمْ. When you say كَأَنَّ, you are saying it is as if لَمْ يَسْمَعُوا قَوْلَهُ تَعَالَى, that they have not heard what God has said. تِلْكَ الدَّارُ الْآخِرَةِ نَجْعَلُهَا لِلَّذِينَ لَا يُرِيدُونَ عُلُوًّا فِي الْأَرْضِ وَلَا فَسَادًا وَالْعَاقِبَةُ لِلْمُتَّقِينَ. It is as if they have not heard God say that the next world, we have made it for who? الَّذِينَ لَا يُرِيدُونَ عُلُوًّا فِي الْأَرْضِ. Those that do not want greatness in the land. The next world's for them. وَلَا فَسَادًا. Nor do they want mischief, nor do they want trouble. وَالْعَاقِبَةُ لِلْمُتَّقِينَ. عَاقِبَة means what comes next. Means the next world. لِلْمُتَّقِينَ. This is what we are discussing all these nights. You want to be a muttaqi because you want the next world. You want to achieve this world. You don't really love yourself if you want this world. You hate yourself. Anyone that wants a transient world does not love themselves. If you really love yourself, if you really care for yourself, you want what's best for yourself. And this is what God's telling you. Take what's best for yourself. بل تؤثرون الحياة الدنيا والآخرة خير وأبقى. تأثرون, that these people, they strive and they sacrifice for this world. Why do you sacrifice for a world that's going to, it's only terminal? A world that's so fragile and will no longer exist. When the next world, this is all the prophets came and told you. From day dot to now, this is all they were saying. The next world, the next world. Yet people still strive for this world in which you get sick, this world in which you get tired, this world in which you get old, this world in which you die. Now Allah Azza wa Jal gives you many stories of people in the Quran and different events. And in the narrations we have many events. Of these stories that really affected me was the story of Salman al-Muhammadi or Salman al-Farisi. Salamullahi alayhi. Because Salman was so great. Salman was so great that Rasulullah, when the Muhajirin and the Ansar were quarreling over who is Salman a part of. Is he from the Ansar? The others say no, he's from the Muhajirin. Just to give you, just so you know, some people are not acquainted with these terms, you hear them all the time. Muhajirin and Ansar. A Muhajir is someone that was from Mecca and traveled with the Prophet to Medina. They called them Al-Muhajirin. Muhajir is someone that migrates. So they migrated, so the Meccans were known as Al-Muhajirin. Al-Ansar were the people from Yathribites, so the people from Medina, the people that he actually stood by him in Medina. So they were quarreling on who was he. Was he of the Muhajirin or was he of the Ansar? And Rasulullah said, Salman minna Ahl al-Bayt. Salman is from us, Ahl al-Bayt. Who is Salman? Salman is that man that when he was sent after the 30 years of darkness that swept over the Islamic Ummah after the martyrdom of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam, and then the first righteous Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib salawatullahi wa salamu alayhi was finally put in his rightful position. He sent his representatives to take over control from the tyrants that were there before them. And when Salman turned up, you know, when you are told in these places that a new man or a new ruler has assumed office, everyone is waiting for the entourage. Everyone's waiting for the caravan. Everyone's waiting for all the horses and the kingsmen and what have you. You know, the show that, you know, when the king comes out or the pope comes out, they do this show where they show this show of might. Salman turns up with a few dates and he has like a mat with him. He walks into the masjid and he prays And they come up to him and they don't know who he is. Remember, there's not pictures everywhere of the leaders. They say, have you seen a caravan or a convoy or, have you seen anything on the way? And he says, no, why? They said the new Khalif was supposed to send his leader, the representative. He says, I am him. They said, you? Look at you. That you are seated, you have nothing. You are here amongst, they're not used to this. People are used to having someone that they can't see and they can't touch. This guy's too close, he mustn't be important. Imagine someone was given a position. Allah Azza wa Jal speaks of certain people. And I'll move to this point a bit later, just to explain on this point. Because I mentioned the Pope. If you notice, most of the Christian clergy and the way that they dress, even though when they mention the King of the Jews, when they mention Nabi Isa, ala nabina wa alihi wa alayhi salam, they say he wore very plain clothing and he rode on the back of a donkey. They mention what he wore. And when he walked into the temple, who knows what Jesus did in the temple? If you went to Sunday school or you had Bible studies, you took scripture class in school. When he entered the temple, he went in and he destroyed. Jesus destroyed. Whenever you hear about Jesus, you always see a lamb and him patting a lamb. It's not what happened. Jesus, there was times where he spoke to the people, and there was times where he had to take action, where he walked in the temple and he smashed what they were doing. He threw tables where they were trading. They were buying and selling inside the house of worship. Inside a house of worship, they were buying. You see some people now in mosques, they sit there and buy and sell. They sit there and trade. It doesn't become a place. Honestly, I've seen this. They sit and buy and sell things. They come in as a majlis. Someone's reading, I sell this. It's a place of worship. It's not a place of trade. This is the manner that Jesus came to call them, and look at the way that they represent him. So what's the opposite of tawadu'? It's kibr. It's pride. When we say pride, we're talking about, when you use the word pride, you're talking about self-conceited pride. When you are someone that sees themselves above others. Like when you look at the fashion, for example, parades where they have catwalk models that walk in that manner, in that snobbish and arrogant manner, that I'm above the world. I've been starving myself for the last millennium, so that makes me above everybody else. And they walk through, and they walk in such an arrogant, pig-headed and pompous manner. Even, we mentioned last night, bodybuilders in the same token. You have people that walk in that same manner. If you have a look at a bodybuilding contest, it is one of the biggest contests of takabbur. There's one person posing, the other guy jumps in front of him, then another guy jumps in front of him, someone flicks a bicep and the other one puts a tricep, someone wants to show a pectoral. They're all over each other just to get their body out there. All in a self-conceited manner, and they're being judged on what? Like the Miss Universe contest. They're being judged on the way that they appear, the way that they look, rather on what they have to offer mankind, what they have put forward, what they have achieved. That's not even looked at. This is what they judge you on. They judge you on that. They judge you on what you appear. This person's body is out of proportion, not good enough. You should burn him, he's out of proportion. This is the way that they're judging people. And we end up doing the same thing. Where we come out in our finest madhar, or our finest, what's the word for madhar? In our finest appearance. Yeah. That was the jinn on the other side of the wall, like the story the Sayyid said. So anyway, the final, in our best and finest appearance. Okay, we come out and show the world. Where people get their cars looking as nice as possible, they buff them up, and then they start doing happy laps, and then the council's forced to put 1,000,001 no right turns or no left turns so people can't keep coming back and doing the happy lap again and irritating others. Now if you look at this, it's synonymous with what? It's synonymous with the story of Qarun. Qarun, if you want to see the manifestation of pride, it was Qarun. Qarun, in fact, according to our narrations, was the first mukhtal. He was the first person that was arrogantly proud of what he was. And when God speaks about him, He says, فَخَرَجَ عَلَىٰ قَوْمِهِ فِي زِينَتِهِ, that when he came out, خَرَجَ عَلَىٰ قَوْمِهِ فِي زِينَتِهِ, that when he came out, he would wear his finest garb, his finest clothing. He would come out with that trail we mentioned that they used to wear, and jewelry, and he'd walk out with everything, you know, like in today's appearance that you see where people come out and they want to show that I've got it all. And then the people around, God says about those that want hayat al-dunya. He says, قال الذين يريدون الحياة الدنيا يا ليت لنا مثل ما أوتي قارون. Only if, and a lot of people have this. The majority of mankind has this. وَلَا الْأَسَفِ. It is so regrettable that even the believers have this, that they yearn to have what the unbeliever has. I wish I had this, I wish I had that, I wish I had this, and all these worldly things. يا ليت لنا. You know, sometimes when people talk about someone's wealth, they get excited just by talking about money. You know, this guy, he's worth that much. This guy's worth that much. يا ليت لنا مثل ما أوتي قارون. We wish to have what Qarun has. And then they say, إِنَّهُ لَذُو حَظٍ عَظِيمٍ. That this guy is very fortunate. That this guy's got great fortune. He has all this wealth. And he was a proud person. He was a mutakabbir. And you have a look at these actors and these performers. They have these similar attitudes, and people go outside airports waiting for them. You know, honestly, the people that wait for the performer at an airport are worse than the performer. Why? Because the performer sold his akhri for his dunya. The singer, I was once in Beirut, we were going to the airport, and there was a guy there standing, and there's all these women, majority of them wearing hijab, screaming their lungs out, standing next to him, taking photos. And I said to some guy, I said, who's this guy? He said, oh, this is Tamar Hosni. And I said, who's that? He said, he's a singer. Now he looked at me as if to say, you don't know who this guy is. Honestly, I don't know, but I haven't forgotten the name since you told me. But this guy was standing there, and these women were around him, and they were dying just to get a picture with him. However, they are worse than him. Why? Because he sold his akhri for his dunya. Sorry, he sold his akhri and he gained the dunya. They sold their akhri for his dunya, not theirs. It's not like they got anything out of it. They traded for what was his. They traded so they can look good, that we are screaming next to him. You know, when people faint when they see them. In that same manner. Now, God then goes on to say, وَقَالَ الَّذِينَ أُوتُوا الْعِلْمِ وَيْلَكُمْ ثَوَابُ اللَّهِ خَيْرٌ لِمَنْ آمَنَ وَعَمِلَ صَالِحًا وَلَا يُلَقَّاهَا إِلَّا الصَّابِرِينَ. Now, the ones that have knowledge, you know, if you people have knowledge, you're not people that don't have brains. You're people that understand. All day, you are fasting. Shah Ramadan, you're fasting the whole day. Isn't that right? You know there will come a time where you get to eat, you get to drink, you get to do all the activities that you were forbidden from during the أفلح من صلى على محمد وآل محمد. So you are during this entire day withholding yourself from drinking. You're withholding yourself from eating. You're withholding yourself because you know the time will come and then I will be allowed to eat what I want, drink what I want, and I'll go back to normal. Likewise is this life. And this is why Allah Azza wa Jal is mentioning this. However, with fasting, you only get to eat what is permissible, drink what is permissible, but until a time, then you're fasting again. However, those that understand, which we should be people that understand, know that when it's over, when it is time to break this fast that we are living in, that time comes and then you can do what you want forever. Forever, not for a day or two. When I count, you actually read all the blessings of paradise, the blessing that stands out for me more than any other blessing is Al-Khuld. Because the whole time you are living with that shroud over your head, you don't know when you're going to die in this dunya. And that is enough to depress anyone. If you didn't believe in God, you would go to the pub and drink your sorrows away. Why? Because you cannot handle that one day I will be non-existent. Because that's what they believe. The hereafter, the biggest blessing is that it is for eternity. There is no moment in your life where this blessing stops. It is an eternal blessing. It is forever and ever, and this is why these people choose the next world. This is why they have made the choice for the next world. And the pride of the believer is shown in the next world. If you read in the Quran, when Allah Azza wa Jal speaks about the believer that gets his book in his right hand, in Surah Al-Haqqa, when you read that verse, he actually mentions it. He declares it to the world. Ha umuqra'u kitabiyah. This is my book. You know, like the people that are showing their stuff, strutting their stuff in this world, even though the stuff that they have in this world is transient and there is a time where it all ends, in the next world it's eternal. So it doesn't matter. Now it's time to scream at the loudest point of your voice and let the world hear that I'm triumphant, I am successful. Now it's the time for you to gloat. Now it's the time for you to be proud, because you have achieved what you missed out on in this dunya. That you really didn't miss out on anything, because the majority of people that dress in this manner, and all of them, the people that come out and gloat in this world, they're all pretentious. It's all fake. It's a facade. They just show you an image that does not exist. And always go back to the Wizard of Oz syndrome. Whenever anyone's read the Wizard of Oz, always read that part about the Wizard of Oz. It was all an image. Really, it was a frail old man behind a room, and he made himself out to be something. He augmented his image, and this is the way the people perceived him. And in the dunya, the people that come out proud and are haughty, when they are caught, you saw when Saddam was imprisoned, you can see what they are. When Slobodan Milosevic was imprisoned, you saw what he was. You saw Muammar Gaddafi when he was imprisoned, grabbed and being dragged. This same Mutkibir that told the people, I will chase you, and people were saying the words that he was saying, we will get you where you are in, from house to house, from borough to alley, and then he's been dragged in the street and he's saying, Haram alaykum. You could see him being degraded and humiliated, but that's what he was the whole time. It was all a show. It was all a facade. In this world, you're supposed to be humble. You're supposed to walk through the land with humility, Walk through the land remembering that one day you are accountable for everything you have done. One day you will stand. Just that very thought makes you think on how you're going to live. وَعِبَادُ الرَّحْمَنِ الَّذِينَ يَمْشُونَ عَلَى الْأَرْضِ هَوْنًا. Remember this. In order for me to become a worthy slave of God, I have to walk humbly with my Creator. وهذا والحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى اللهم على محمد وآله الطيبين الطاهرين. One more thing, we want everyone to read dua. Firstly, many people have asked me that they have hawaij, and this is Shahr Ramadan, we all have needs, and we ask Allah, we read the verse inshallah 5 times, for our needs to be fulfilled, and also for the sick. There are some people that have sick members in their family and are sick themselves. They have illnesses themselves. Your job here is to supplicate for them. This is the least that you can do. So together we'll read the verse. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. أَمَّا يُجِيبُ الْمُضْطَرَّ إِذَا دَعَاهُ وَيَكْشِفُ السُّوءَ أما يجيب المضطر إذا دعاه ويكشف السوء 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 يا الله يا الله يا الله يا الله اكشف عنا السوء يا Allah. We ask Allah to cure all the sick, everyone that's here in this month, بحق everyone that's present, بحق our master Al-Hujjat ibn Al-Hasan Al-Mahdi, that every sick person or anyone that knows someone sick is cured in the honor of this night, in this month, in this holy month. And we ask Allah to fulfill the needs and take away all, fulfill the needs of all those that are in need. وهذا والحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى اللهم على محمد وآله الطيبين الطاهرين.